The open plains south of the Sahara Desert in Africa host a vast and diverse group of animals, many of which were once proud beasts of the land that roamed the sub-Saharan plains freely and without obstruction, from mighty megafauna like the elephant and rhino to fearsome reptiles like the Nile crocodile and packs of vicious wild dogs and everything in between. It is within these plains lands that a battle is raging for the survival of one of Mother Nature's most fascinating creatures, the cheetah. The cheetah is often recognized by most as the fastest land mammal, a lightning-fast feline which can reach speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. This gives them the reputation of a vicious and persistent hunter and a dangerous beast with the ability to chase down any prey or threat to its home. Some might even say that if not for the presence of lions and leopards, that the cheetah could be the top cat on the African plains. But these are for the most part just illusions cast upon them by mythology and mysticism, as well as the misunderstanding of these amazing animals. In truth, the cheetah is a critically endangered species of which only 7,100 individuals exist on the vast sub-Saharan continent and only 49 in the Asian steppes. But how did this supposedly infallible speedster come to be at risk of extinction? Much like the origins of their feline cousins, the origin of the cheetah is a hotly debated topic in which many theories have been proposed by prominent organizations. Some biologists posit that the cheetah descended from the European Acinonyx pardonensis 2.2 million years ago, and others believe that it may have originated in North Africa as a descendant of Acinonyx aicha. However, in 2008, scientists discovered a cheetah skull in China that dates back as far as 2.5 million years ago. While this is only as old as the oldest cheetah skulls on record, this skull had what scientists described as primitive features, such as an enlarged and pronounced nasal cavity and primitive teeth. A pronounced nasal cavity shows the first step of evolving for speed, the trait for which cheetahs are best known in the modern day. 2.5 million years ago, these ancient ancestors began to evolve into the felines we know now. The cheetah species, however, suffered greatly through two genetic bottleneck events which have crippled their ability to evolve further and left them a shell of what they were before the advent of civilization. The first event occurred some 100,000 years ago when the species began to rapidly expand from Africa into Europe, Asia, and North America. It is believed that this rapid expansion caused cheetahs to be unable to readily spread genes between different populations and resulted in a genetic bottleneck that created several subspecies of cheetah throughout the Old World. Of those subspecies, only the African and Asian cheetah remain today, though in dwindling numbers. A second bottleneck is believed to have happened between 10 and 12,000 years ago. During the end of the last ice age, many mammals went extinct, as they became unable to compete in a changing world. Cheetahs were not safe from this event. Scientists theorize that this extinction caused the cheetah population to drop down to only 7 individual members, which were only able to survive because of inbreeding. Today, the biggest threat to cheetahs is human interaction. Cheetahs tend to hunt cattle where they can, and this leads to direct confrontation and the hunting down of individuals who eat a farmer's livestock. Poaching has also taken a toll on their species, as their fur still sells for a high price on many markets. And even as anti-poaching laws become more prevalent, many countries in Africa lack the financial ability to fund proper conservation and anti-poaching efforts. But even before poaching and trophy hunting became popular practices, cheetah numbers never rose beyond 100,000 individuals since humans have been keeping track, and even in a pre-industrial 19th century, the species was suffering from a lack of genetic diversity. This was a consequence of inbreeding to survive the previously mentioned extinction event. Because of these circumstances, cheetahs suffer from a number of congenital disorders and hereditary diseases, such as cheetah myelopathy, which is a neural condition characterized by degenerative lesions in the brain and spinal cord of the afflicted feline. These complications, combined with the harsh reality of life in the wild and human abuses caused by overhunting and development that leads to habitat loss, has greatly impacted the lifespan of the cheetah. It is believed that they had once been able to live up to 20 years, but due to all of the circumstances surrounding them, the average lifespan of cheetahs has dwindled to a median 12 years, though many individuals may not even make it to see their 7th birthday. But it's not just disease and overhunting and habitat loss which affects this cat. There are several factors in their own biology which hurt them as well. A good way to describe the cheetah is by saying that it performs poorly at all of the things which have made the feline families so dominant in the current era. They selected to be fast runners, but this evolutionary trait has come at a number of costs. For example, the cheetah cannot fully retract its claws. The reason for this is that the extended claws allow the cheetah to gather more traction as it runs, which, while helpful in a high-speed pursuit, is detrimental to a hunter when the earth wears at its claws and makes them dull and unable to slash. This also renders the cat unable to climb trees and escape from threats, and condemns them to the flat land of the African plains. In addition, the cheetah has a large nasal cavity for taking in as much oxygen as possible. This also aids in the strategy of high speed, but it required the cheetah to select for a smaller mouth and fangs, and it costs the ability to roar and intimidate other animals which may threaten the cheetah. A lithe and slender body with narrow hips and shoulders, and a long tail to help steering make the cheetah aerodynamic at the cost of its own durability. An attack from most foes is enough to critically injure a cheetah and leave it unable to run, effectively cutting off its ability to hunt. And there's the issue of heat. Running so quickly might seem like a great boon, but in actuality, cheetahs can only run so fast for so long before having to stop and cool down for several seconds to minutes. It is because of this that any prey which can effectively outlast the cheetah's stride, or simply turn harder than the cheetah, will easily be able to escape, resulting in a waste of energy for the hunter. It's no wonder, given all of these facts, that cheetahs are on the verge of disappearing forever. But there's still hope. Cheetah conservation is an important duty that is owed to nature by mankind after all of the abuses that this beautiful animal has had to suffer. That's where the Wildlife Conservation Society comes into play. The WCS is an organization based out of the Bronx Zoo which works on conserving all sorts of endangered animals, including the cheetah. It is for this reason that they even allow visitors to meet an ambassador animal so that we as a society can come to appreciate this majestic cat and realize the duty that befalls us all to protect them. I went to the Bronx Zoo and took part in the meet and greet with a cheetah ambassador named Triton and his two trainers, Kira Babushka and Tyrone Nickens. In the zoo, the cheetah has a companion dog which helps it acclimate to new people. Because cheetahs are naturally anxious, the presence of a canine who is comfortable with the new audience calms the cat and gives it the confidence to be around people it's never met before. As soon as Triton came into the room and saw the dog cozying up to the audience, he began to purr like a giant house cat. While observing Triton, it was evident that he was just like a giant kitten, one who enjoyed being pet, having his belly scratched, and being given treats as much as your average tabby cat. But cheetah conservation isn't only about training the animal to behave in a controlled setting. It's also about learning how to breed and sustain viable individuals with enough genetic diversity to continue the species and recover some of the genetic variation that has been lost throughout the centuries. This is where the species survival plan comes in. Listen to what trainer Kira had to say.
So I know cheetahs suffered a genetic bottleneck a long time ago. So in terms of the African cheetah, I know they're almost entirely genetically identical or very close to genetically identical. How does that impact the conservation efforts and efforts to maintain the cheetah in a healthy environment at the zoo?
To be honest, it's tough. It's honestly very tough. So you're 100% right. They get a huge bottlenecking. So all of the genetics are very closely related. And in zoos, we actually have something referred to as an SSP, so it's a species survival plan. So annually, there are committees of people who get together who discuss the genetics of certain populations. So the cheetah SSP is actually the reason why we have Triton and Blowfoot here. So they'll look at the genetics of a certain population and say, okay, on paper, this animal would breed great with this animal, and it would be as genetically pure as we can have it.
Right.
Which in theory is great, but you could have two individuals who want nothing to do with one another, so they may not breed. Which is where AI comes into place, because a couple of years ago, the Columbus Zoo actually just had two cubs that were born from AI, from two very genetically important older animals that wouldn't be able to breed, that they implanted into a less genetically important female. So that was really good and really is going to help out the cheetahs. But Triton and Littlefoot, their genetics are already very well represented. So these guys are born at San Diego Safari Park. Their mom Allie had 4 cubs, 2 girls and 2 boys. And they said that if there was going to be any males in the group, they were going to be deemed surplus. So essentially that means that they're going to be ambassador cheetahs, which is what they are, which is a great way for us to be able to help people make connections to wild animals. Or they're going to be exhibit cheetah. So we took them in here, and then Allie got to raise her 2 girls because they were going to stay at San Diego and be exhibit cheetah. Um, so through the SSP is definitely helpful to try to keep the genetic line as pure as we can, but in the wild it's still an issue. There's less than 7,100 cheetahs left in the wild, and every day they're losing their numbers. You have larger cats who take out a whole litter of cubs just because it's future competition. They don't have to worry about when they're older. And the pet trade.
Right.
The illegal pet trade is really hindering these guys. You'll have 6 cheetah cubs taken out of the wild, and now you're removing not only those individuals but the genetics in that line.
Right.
And then you'll probably only have one of those cubs actually survive to make it to a buyer because now they're kept. So cheetahs definitely, they have it rough. They have it rough. But the SSP is definitely something that can potentially save these guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
As Kira said, the SSP relies on identifying genetically important individuals or individuals with greater genetic variation from their peers and ensuring that they get to breed in a safe environment, and even artificial intelligence has its role to play in it. Only dedicated conservation efforts on the part of as many people as possible can save these beautiful felines. Thank you for staying around long enough to watch my video presentation. The topic of animal conservation is near and dear to me as I've always held a fascination with nature and the many precious creatures our world has to offer. Only when we come together and realize that there's a lot of work to be done, and that it can only be done in earnest and with true kindness for these animals in our heart, can we rest knowing that we've done what we can for the world. And I'm sure Triton and his friends at the WSCS Center at the Bronx Zoo will thank you for it too.